I try to think about, I was thinking about this morning, what is it that inspires me to talk week after week after week? And usually it's just my own life and stuff going on for me, you know? And it's amazing how many times I'll talk about stuff that's going on with me, and then people will come up and say, oh my God, that's exactly what's going on with me. And so I really think there is only one of us here. There's only one of us experiencing life. We're just in myriad bodies. And so we all experience lots of the same challenges. So I'm going to jump right in. For those of you who are watching on TV, I asked everybody here to write down a question of a spiritual holiday or any kind of nature, pretty much. And I'm going to draw them, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I really have no idea, no preparation whatsoever. No, it's good. It's a very good question. I just want to make sure I answer it well. Need right approach to reach out spiritually to a dead speech. Let me say it again. Need right approach to reach out to a spiritually dead loved one. So I would presume, and if anybody wants to, jump in and say, hey, that's my question, let me clarify, that's great. But are you all getting that this person is alive in body, but spiritually dead? Is that correct? Well, that's a very good question. A person who is spiritually dead is, in my opinion, and I don't know the particular situation, but a person who is spiritually dead is usually a person who's in a lot of pain. And often a person who's been through a lot of pain over and over and over again. And so you just get a little bit numb and you start to shut yourself down. To me, one of the benchmarks of being a spiritually awake person is seeing your commonality with other people. Does that make sense? That as I said just a moment ago, there's only one of us here. And so when we get spiritually dead, when we withdraw spiritually, what we're really trying to say is that we are unique. We're different from everybody else, and there's something particularly wrong with us, and it's challenging. I think that the best way ever to share anything with anyone is through a good example. And the worst way to share anything through anyone is through nagging. I know that I pick up so much osmotically, you know what that word means, osmosis, from being around Marty. Because whenever Marty's car pulls in the garage, she's listening to some spiritual guru, and I'm listening to something, and half the time we're like, what are you listening to? And what are you listening to? And everything like that. So I think that one of the best things you can do is always to be a good example to the person and never to try and push that person, because they are already feeling in pain and diminished anyway. So the best thing would be to share honestly what your experiences are, your spiritual path, but at the same time to understand that sometimes some of the people who are having the deepest, most spiritual lives never talk about it either. They already are at such a state. So may not be the case in this particular case, but that would be my suggestion. Don't push, understand that person's in pain. I still say the only reason I'm a vegan today and have been for almost 6 years is because Marty never, ever pushed me. When we got together, I took her out to steakhouses every time just to show that she was not going to change me. And she sat there with a smile on her face going, I don't want to change you. She actually never said that. She just loved me like I was. And finally I went, she looks pretty amazing for her age. I wonder what she does. And that's when I started seeking it out. So again, the best sermon is a good example. So that would be my suggestion. So let's draw another one. How to maintain steady spiritual energy throughout the holidays. Awesome. That's a great question. That is a great question. To me, spiritual energy is like a very gentle stream that flows all the time. It's always flowing. When we bought this house that we have now by the lake that we love so much, we didn't realize what we thought was a drain from the street for overflow for when it rains It is that, but it's also a natural creek, but a very, very gentle one that flows all the time. It's one of the things that keeps Lake Wacomas filled up. To me, that's what spiritual energy is. It's this soft, gentle, flowing thing that is us, and it wants to flow all the time. But we're mind, we're body, we're spirit. And if our mind or our body are out of a whack, it's hard to let that gently flow. Does that make sense? I mean, honestly, just the little bit of pain I'm in with my knee today, I feel a little less mentally connected. You know what I mean? One of the things that I've discovered over just the last few years that just blinding flash of the obvious is that exercise increases energy, it doesn't deplete it. Exercise gives you energy. When you exercise 3 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours the next day, you are far more energized. And yet what most people tend to do when the holidays come is they start letting their exercise slip for very good reasons. And yet time is such a mushy, gushy subject that if we actually looked at what we were doing, I just noticed I don't have the right slide up there. Anyway, it doesn't matter. If we looked at how we spent our time, we're able to get pretty much everything done. I got this when as it was at my first church where Alex and I worked together. And I had been there for about 6 months, and I wanted to impress everybody, and I wanted to show them, that I could be super minister and all this, and I was doing everything. And through trying to be super minister, I herniated 3 vertebrae in my back. And the doctors were talking surgery, and I didn't want to do surgery because I talked to a few other people who had it, and they weren't satisfied in their experience. So I started Googling, and this was, about 5, 6, 7 years ago when Google wasn't all that big. I started looking it up, and I found a place where I could go and get traction in my back and a chiropractic adjustment. The problem was, it was an 1.5-hour round trip from where I worked. And I had to go every single day of the week. And I was already too busy. Does that make sense? Somehow, I was able to make that 1.5-hour round trip and have an 1.5-hour appointment every single day, and everything still got done just fine. You can exercise, you can take time for you can meditate, and you can be a decent person who actually enjoys the holidays and still get everything done if you'll put your own life and your own well-being first. The greatest gift you can give your family is your own happiness. And if they show up and you're just all freaked out, stressed out, but by God, the cake looks good, just doesn't make any sense. So don't let the holidays be your chance to just all of a sudden start eating crap and don't take care of yourself. It just doesn't make sense. So that was a good question. Thank you. Is this fun? Yeah?
Yes.
Good. What do you think is the spiritual role model for all children that we as parents can use will be encourage our children to continue in their life? So what do you think is the spiritual role model for our children that we as parents can use? What do I think of as a spiritual role model that we as parents? I would say, honestly, anyone you admire as a parent. I was rereading the other day Tom Roth's book, How Full Is Your Bucket? Which I think everybody needs to read that book. It's a very simple concept. His father was the one who decided that let's stop studying all the sick, crazy people, because that's what psychiatry was up until the 1960s, ever since Freud realized that people are separate from their behaviors. It has a mental thing. And so everything was studying wrong, malady, problem. And his grandfather, Tom Roth's grandfather, said, let's actually study the healthy, right, good, whole people. And I remember when my daughter Leah was just walking, there was a girl who used to come and babysit her who was 16 years old. She was across the street. And that was the smartest, most together, most mature young lady. And so I went over and talked to her parents. I said, I want my daughter to be like your daughter. What should I do? And they gave me some advice. In their opinion, they said, never talk baby talk to her. Always treat her like she's part of the conversation and knows what's going on, at no matter what age. So, as far as a single spiritual role model as parents, I, of course, admire, there's some great spiritual role models out there, but I think you should just find parents that are really good parents and to model for the children. And as far as the children's spiritual role model, don't give them one, invite them to become one. You know, it's always been said that the student looks to the teacher, but the teacher looks to the truth. Teach your children to be teachers. Teach them to look to their own truth that lies within inside them. Don't say, follow this particular person or this particular individual. All right, let's do a couple more. I'm having fun with this. I hope y'all are too. I'll get to look back on video and see what I actually said later. How about this? How do you raise children to find their own spiritual path without imposing yours? That's a common thing. See, it's good to know. These are very good common questions. Well, I was raised Presbyterian by my parents, who really had no total understanding of it themselves. The thing about, I mean that sincerely, as far as what Presbyterian, I know more about it today than I did then, because I'm an ordained minister. The thing about it is, spirituality is tied up in community, and there's nothing more important than community. The reason that there's 10 million complaint-free or 11 million complaint-free bracelets around the world is because people gave them out not to individuals, they gave them out in churches. They give them out in schools. They give them out in businesses. They give them out where there's already community. And we are so tied in there. I have very good friends who don't agree with their parents at all when it comes to religion. These are guys in their 50s. But they go to church every week so that they see mom and dad. Now, ideally, in a healthy situation, mom and dad would say, sweetie, if this isn't what you believe, then you should go off and do what's important to you. But for a lot of people, they truly believe that if you go off and do your own thing, your everlasting soul is in question. That's why one of my favorite quotes is from Confucius. Don't worry about the afterlife. You haven't gotten this one figured out yet. That's what everything's about. Get this one figured out and the next one will take care of itself. So to jump all the way back and answer that question, I would say make very sure that your spirituality is indeed your spirituality, and it's not your mother's spirituality, your father's spirituality. And by that, I come up with these arrogant thoughts from once in a while. I just came up with one recently, and that was coming back from Bali and Korea and everything recently. I thought to myself, people who've never been out of the United States should not be allowed to vote inside the United States. Because you have no perspective outside of it. Until you understand, and this is my opinion, you should look into Buddhism, you should look into Hinduism, you should look into Sikhism, you should look into Islam. None of them are scary and none of them are bad and none of them are going to make you not get into whatever afterlife you happen to believe in. But when you are rock solid, the more you question what you believe and come back to the answer, the stronger it is. You get that, right? So question your own spirituality somewhat and invite your child, and wherever they land, you don't have to agree. That's the hard part. You don't have to agree. I'm going to do one more. Oh, that's a good question. Thank you. Because I talked about this and I want to talk some more about it. How can we act as peacemakers this holiday season? I could never be as still as this piece of paper because I'm energy. The paper is energy as well, but I'm animated. I'm actually living. The way people know that they're alive is through the energy that they experience. This may sound crazy, but a lot of philosophers actually conjecture that there's nothing out there. It's all just a dream. Go watch The Matrix again. Okay? The energy that we are permeates everything that we do. And right now, because human beings, we love... Let me ask you a question. How many of you felt energized when the Royals were in the World Series? Raise your hand. How many of you felt energized when they won? How many of us felt all of a sudden connected to everybody in Kansas City? If there was a bomb that went off here, you would feel the exact same way. We live because we are energy. Right now, there are bombs. Do you know? Let me ask you this way. I'm going to put it in 3 questions. Are there at least one mass shooting a month in this country, a week, or a day? What do you think the answer is? The answer is more than one a day in this country alone. But what we talk about is the terrorism attacks going on around the world, which is fine. All I'm saying is that there's a lot of negative crap out there to talk about. And when we get with our families, it's so easy because we don't want to talk about how we're really feeling with our families. That it's so easy to start talking about Paris and everything else and all of the things that are going on there. The thing we can do is not give it any energy this Christmas. We can have the best Christmases we want and we deserve. And we can make sure that we're not thinking about all the greatest. We're celebrating the birth of what everybody calls the Prince of Peace. How about whenever anybody starts talking about negativity or bombs or anything, imagine what it's like when that simply does not happen. That's a prayer. Just closing your eyes and imagining for just a minute, what will it be like when people aren't doing this? And then the other thing I would remind you is, you live in the most privileged country during the most privileged time on the planet. As a result, your expectations are too damn high. When you go shopping and when you go driving, people are going to irritate you more than they would anyone else on the planet. Other people who simply can't drink fresh water. So simply continue to remember that. That's a secret happy people know. They look at people who have it worse than them. So when you, poor thing, are having to stand at customer service at Walmart, remember the people, 80% who slept on the ground on this planet last night. Then you cut other people a lot more slack and you'll feel a lot more peaceful. Okay? Take somebody's hand. Let's seal this in prayer. Dear God, we do celebrate that there is only one of us here. The expression of humanity living and trying to remember that it is one with God. As we remind ourselves of that, we live that, and we show that love to others. Others reflect that back to us, and it all becomes a wonderful experience. Thank you, God, for this heaven on earth. And so it is. Amen.